Just like what you want to give me, yeah.
All right.
So when and where were you born?
I was born in Chicago, in the South Side. I grew up on 83rd and Brandon.
Deep in the sea.
Oh, alright. And so at home, like as a kid or growing up, did you ever feel like you were being discriminated against, or did you ever observe discrimination?
I was born in the United States, but my parents are from Mexico. And one thing that happened to me when I was really young, it's the first moment when I realized discrimination existed. I think I was around 7 years old, and in our community, it was a big Mexican community, and we had a desfile. What do you call that? I'm trying to remember. A big parade for September 16th, which is Mexican Independence Day. And my mom would always take us to the main street to go see it. And I remember that day we were walking with our little Mexican flags, like really proud, really excited. It's a really big day. And this one white person, like this older man, like pushed us like to get out of the way, and it was just like, oh, you Mexicans, get out of here, go back to your country. And I remember thinking, I was born here, like what is he talking about? And just knowing that that was wrong, and getting those looks made us feel really uncomfortable.
Oh, all right. So, have you ever participated in like any protests concerning the Chicano movement? And if yes, where? When I went to college, I went to Northwestern University, and we had a really small Latino population there, about 4% when I was there. And at that time, I realized that there was a group of us realized that there's a huge need for more support for Latino students. One of the big things we focused on was trying to get support and rights for undocumented students, and also to start a Chicano studies program at the school. Even though we're a tier 1 school, a lot of schools have Latino studies programs. Our school didn't, so we participated in meetings with the president of the university, and did a lot of like the political stuff first, got petitions, and they ignored us. So we started a protest at the Rock, which is a place where there's a lot of protests at Northwestern. And until we got attention from the president to really consider bringing professors to teach Latino studies. And now, 10 years later, they now have a Latino studies major. So it took a really long time for it to happen, but it was worthwhile. Right. So I know you're like the head of Latino Quest. Mm-hmm. So what do you believe is like the what do you want the ultimate goal of Latino Quest to be?
Well, our biggest goal, I think, is to give students a sense of community. Many students have shared that they don't feel like they belong to the school or feel connected to the school, and that was like one of the big purposes. The other reason why we started as an organization was to help promote academic success with Latino students, and like give them role models that they can talk to, like Ms. Control and myself, and give them leadership training and expose them to more things so they can try to pursue like a higher education. So it's grown to be a lot more now. We do cultural programming, leadership training, we do mentoring with the Northwestern students, and we continue to expand every year because as different students come in and out of the program, they give us new ideas.
Do you believe progress has been made in the Chicano movement?
I do think there have been some big changes. Like now we have Chicano studies in a lot of schools, but there's still a lot of work to be done, especially in the schools. Like, for example, here at ETHS, out of 255 teachers, we have around 7 to 10 teachers that are Latino. We have other staff, but not like teachers in a position where we could be role models. I think that needs to continue to increase. We also need to have more students in college succeeding in college and graduating, so that we can have like more political representation and just more representation, positive representation in general as our community continues to grow.
All right. Do you think the DREAM Act should be passed?
Yeah, I strongly support the DREAM Act. Even though I was born here, I don't need it. I know a lot of families who would benefit from it. A lot of kids who grew up here in the United States but don't have and are doing really well academically, have worked hard, followed the American dream, and just because of a legal paper, they can't continue their education. So I'm really strongly support it, especially as a teacher.
What do you think was the most? Who do you think was the most inspirational leader to the Chicano movement?
Well, there have been many. Definitely Cesar Chavez with the farm workers movement, the lawyers who
The Mexican-American Civil Rights Movement, also known as the Chicano movement, started in the 1960s. It rooted from the issues of farm workers' rights, better educational opportunities, voting and political rights, and the restoration of land grants. The source of all the discrimination actually comes from the Mexican-American War in the 1800s. The whole Chicano movement began with Cesar Chavez and the United Farm Workers, also known as the UWF, or UFW. He was the voice of the migrant farm workers. The beginning of the movement started from the effects of the land grab movement in New Mexico, in combination with activists marching like Cesar Chavez and the National Farm Workers Association on March 17th in 1966, and high school students forming organizations such as the Young Citizen Community Action (YCCA) in the May of 1966. So by the mid-1960s, it was clear that the movement had begun.
The Chicano movement involved young and older Latinos. Many social groups were formed to fight for their rights, and during the mid-1960s, many youth organizations existed throughout the country, such as the United Mexican American Students, or UMAS, in California and New Mexico, Mexican American Student Confederation in California, and a big one, the Mexican American Youth Organization in San Antonio, Texas. They all sought something that everyone wants: social justice, to be equal and not seen as minority. Many people saw the Chicano movement as a male-dominated movement, but it also had women who wanted to fight for the same rights all the other Chicanos wanted. They began to raise their voices for gender equality and full civil rights. They created a variety of Chicana organizations whose goals were equal treatment and rights for all.
With this spark, the Chicano movement was ablaze. Corky Gonzalez, a normal blue-collar worker who was a former boxer, formed the Crusade for Justice in 1966. This party joined with MLK's movement, fought for political and human rights. Raul Gonzalez Gutierrez would later form the Raza Unida Party in 1970. The Raza Unida Party signified one of the most important goals the Chicano were striving for, a party that could speak for Chicano everywhere. The Raza Unida Party went as far as nominating candidates, entering official elections, and even winning elections in Crystal City, Texas, where the party originated. Ramsey Muniz, a party nominee, was a prominent figure in the Raza Unida Party. He ran for Texas governor in 1972 and 1974, and though he lost, he brought a lot of publicity in the movement. One of his most famous sayings, "If we're good enough to die for this country, we're good enough to be buried in this country." But this was not the first time Chicanos had run for office. In 1963, a group of known as Los Cincos ran for the city council and mayor in Crystal City, Texas. Though not as widely known, Los Cinco won their office and ran Crystal City for one term. False accusations and threat and what drove them out. But for a while, Chicanos had a say in one place in the USA.
The Chicano movement had pretty much died away by the mid-1980s, with their last real act being a fact-finding mission on a counter-revolutionaries in Nicaragua in 1983. Today, the Chicano population is very young, with most of them not having been alive for the glory days of the Chicano movement during the 60s and 70s. The political activism and widespread push for change that was present in the National Farm Workers Association, the Brown Berets, and the United Mexican American Students has all but disappeared. However, some of the same problems from the days of the movement remain. There is still discrimination against those of Chicano descent. Education and job opportunities are still unfavorable, and immigration is still a hotly contested issue. Today, The rights of Chicanos are being fought for not through protests, but through legislators in Congress. The DREAM Act, passed in 2001, grants permanent residence to any immigrant who serves in the armed forces, completes high school, or is currently taking college-level courses in order to earn a degree. In 2013, Representative Luis Gutierrez leads the fight for immigration reform. He has created 9 principles for immigration reform that will hopefully guide the country towards a successful immigration policy, and he continues to fight for policies that will make it easier for immigrants to become citizens and become part of American society. Even though the Chicano movement has died, their goals of equal treatment and equal opportunity are still being fought for today.